Alibaba is one of the best opportunities of our times that is trading at a cheap price, which is hard to find in overpriced markets today. There is a lot of fear and uncertainty surrounding China and Alibaba, which gives a lot of room for long term investors to get a great entry point in these investments. As Warren Buffett says, be fearful when others are greedy, and be greedy when others are fearful. Right now, there is a lot of fear surrounding China, its policies, and its future. China, which is the biggest market in the world, and it is hard to imagine a world without China because of the interdependencies of trade, the exports, and the imports. It scares some investors away because of its economic model, but the result is in the pudding. The economic model that China has created with its own characteristics is so much more economic and viable. It's working. It has lifted 800 million people out of poverty. In this video, I will explain the bullish thesis of some of the greatest investors of our times on China and Alibaba in general. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. With that said, let's get right into it. The first person on this list is Monish Pabrai. Monish is an Indian American investor who runs a fund of close to $636 million. A student of Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, he paid $650,000 in 2007 to have a lunch with the two of them. Here is his bull case on Alibaba and China.
If you look at my filings, you can see that we have a position in Alibaba. And
yeah, we'd love to talk about Baba because that they're in the news all the time, and they're competing head on with kind of U.S. big tech. They also have Chinese tech to compete with Tencent. So, what's your overall thesis with Baba?
Well, it's an incredible business. I mean, just if you look at Baba and Tencent and kind of where they're at and the ecosystem and the moat and what they control and all of that, look at the tailwinds from China. I mean, there's a lot to me to like even more than the large US tech, just because I think that the tailwinds are so much stronger, and there's some serious barriers to entry. But on the other side, it cannot do what racers can do. What I'm saying, I buy a 20 million market cap, which has liquidation value of 800 million. That's a 40x.
Right.
And it's a 40x with no future value creation, just the arbitrage of price and value. I think here there is obviously going to be much larger revenues and profits and such in the future with all the different things they have going on. But you're starting from a very large base, right? So 600 billion plus market cap. It's very cheap. I think Baba is one of the cheapest plays out there.
When do you think the Chinese regulatory issues? I mean, do they ever get past those, or do you think that's just part of doing business in China?
I think Alibaba is a crown jewel for China, just like Tencent is a crown jewel for them. So I don't think they will want to do things. These are the plays that have the possibility of global footprints, that they can get there. So I don't think the government is going to take an approach which is going to kill the golden goose, if you will. So my take is they've extracted their pound of flesh, and they've sent a pretty clear message who's in charge and such. So I don't really expect much more than what we've seen already. Also, the other thing with Alibaba is that in the long term, I think a lot of the value creation for them is cloud, which is non-existent from an earnings perspective today. They have some scale, but they're the number one player. But I think that when you look at Amazon's numbers, and Amazon's numbers with cloud are somewhat misleading because they dump their internal cloud expense in there. So actually, 50 billion revenue and 15 billion net income is actually understated. So I think they're making more than 15 on that, because they're growing as well. They're investing in all the future growth. So the cloud margins are incredible. And the issue with the cloud is that very few people can play. I mean, in the US, the game is for the most part over. You've got the players, and they will. It's hard to even see them even changing the position they're in.
As we can see, Monish is very bullish on China and Alibaba. He says that Alibaba is the crown jewel of China. They will not kill the golden goose, which is Alibaba. They have taken their fines, they have taken their part of flesh, but they will not kill the business entirely. Not only that, Alibaba has a huge room to expand in its cloud business, which has huge margins in China and around the world. Alibaba has the potential of becoming a global Amazon of the world, and the upside is just massive. The upside is just known ending, and the downside is very low risk, but a huge upside. Pabrai funds owned by Monish Pabrai just recently added Alibaba to their portfolio, and now it constitutes over 53% of his portfolio and is one of his biggest holdings. He's backing up what he is saying, and he thinks it's a great business, and he's making it the biggest part of his portfolio. The second person on this list is Charlie Munger. Charlie Munger is one of the greatest investors of our times, and he is the co-founder of Berkshire Hathaway alongside Warren Buffett. He is known for his straight to point answers and logical investment decisions. Here are some of his thoughts on China and Alibaba.
The Daily Journal recently bought a large position in Alibaba after founder Jack Ma had been reprimanded by the Chinese Communist Party, and Ma's other company, Ant, was not allowed to proceed with its IPO. What are your current thoughts on China and whether the communist leaders will allow businesses with strong leadership to flourish in decades to come?
Well, I think that the Chinese government will allow businesses to flourish. It was one of the most remarkable things that ever happened in the history of the world when a bunch of committed communists just looked at the prosperity of places like Singapore and said, the hell with this, we're not going to stay here in poverty, we're going to copy what works. And they changed communism. They just accepted Adam Smith and added it to their communism. And said, now we have communism with Chinese characteristics, which is China with a free market with a bunch of billionaires and so forth. And they made that shift. They deserve a lot of credit. Warren and I are not quite as good at that as changing our minds in many cases. Yeah. And that was a remarkable change coming from such a place. And of course, it's worked like gangbusters. It had this enormous growth in the average income of the average Chinese. They've lifted 800 million people out of poverty fast. And there was never anything like it in the history of the world. So my hat is off to the Chinese. And I think they will continue to allow people to make money. They've learned it works. The Chinese, I loved what the guy said in the first place. I don't care whether the cat is black and white as long as it catches mice. That's my kind of talk.
Gavin Smith from Berkshire, England, he asked, Mr. Munger is a champion of Chinese stocks. How concerned is he about Chinese government interference as seen recently with Ant Financial, Alibaba, and Mr. Jack Ma? What, for example, is to stop the Chinese government from simply deciding one day to nationalize BYD?
Well, I consider that very unlikely. I think Jack Ma was very arrogant to be telling the Chinese government how dumb they were and how stupid their policies were and so forth. Considering their system, that is not what he should have been doing. I think the Chinese have behaved very, very shrewdly in managing their economy, and they've gotten better results than we have in managing our economy. I think that will probably continue. And sure, we all love the kind of civilization we have. I'm not saying I want to live in China. I prefer the United States, but I do admire what the Chinese have done. How can you not do it? Nobody else has ever taken a big country out of poverty so fast and so long. And what I see in China now just staggers me. There are factories in China that are just absolutely full of robots and are working beautifully. They're no longer using peasant girls to beat the brains out of our little shoe companies in America. They are joining the modern world very rapidly, and they're getting very skillful at operating. Well, I like what's happening in China, and I think the United States ought to get along with China and China ought to get along with the United States. Why does Li Lu succeed so mightily? Well, partly he's sort of a Chinese Warren Buffett. That really helps. And partly he's fishing in China, not in this oversearched, overpopulated, highly competitive American market. And there's still pockets of ignorance and lassitude in China that gave him some unusual opportunities. The first rule in fishing has always been fish where the fish are. And the second rule of fishing has always been don't forget rule number one. And Li Lu just went where the fishing was good. And the rest of us are like cod fishermen who are trying to catch cod where the fish have been fished out. It doesn't matter how much you work when there's that much competition.
As you guys just heard, Charlie Munger says it does not matter if the cat is black or white, as long as it catches the mites. He also thinks that China knows the system they invented works, and that is what they are going to keep doing it. That is why they are going to keep investing into their businesses and making billionaires out of normal people. They will let their business flourish. They will not kill their business with overregulation. They will manage it for the people to make it safer for everybody, but they will not kill the business that is making them, that is their golden goose. He also has a strong point on Jack Ma. He criticizes Jack Ma and he thinks that Jack Ma did a huge mistake criticizing the government, calling it stupid. And that is his stance on China. And he is one of the most straightforward and the smartest logical thinkers of our times. His mental models are just fabulous. I've read his book and he is one of the best thinkers out there. Daily Journal, which is Charlie Munger's investment company, bought 165,320 shares in Alibaba. It now makes 19% of his 197 million portfolio, and he only holds 5 stocks in that portfolio. His stake was worth 37.5 million at the end of March in Alibaba. It is now one of his biggest holdings. That is, he's backing up what he's claiming. He's backing up his investments in China. He's backing up what he's saying about Alibaba and about China. He is bullish. Even if Jack Ma leaves as a CEO, he's buying more. Those were the two greatest investors of our time who were bullish on China and who expressed their thoughts on Alibaba and China. Currently, my thesis on China is I am very bullish on China. I think the US stock market is overpriced and the stocks are trading at all-time highs. I'm building up my position in Alibaba. I'm very bullish on this company. I think this is one of the best opportunities of our time that is available at a great price. Okay, Alibaba has a huge room to grow in their cloud business in all of the different sectors in financials, and they have a lot of room, they have a lot of margin, and they have a lot of market space to capture. China, in my opinion, is one of the biggest economic machines that was ever created on earth, and it will be the biggest economic machines in the coming future, and it will stay like that for a long time. I recently added Alibaba to my portfolio and I will make it one of my biggest holdings in the next 3 to 5 years. In the next 20 years, I think this will be one of my biggest winners in my portfolio. This was the Frugal Investor. That was my thesis on Alibaba and China. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. This is the Frugal Investor signing out.